Hey everybody, I'm Max Notice, the host of Recruitment DNA. For those of you who are new to the show, Recruitment DNA is a podcast hosted by Wade and Wendy where we discuss the ever-evolving recruiting landscape. It is early April 2020. We are all quarantined at home because of the coronavirus. So with us on the line today, we have my close friend and colleague, Dave Mekelburg. So Dave, thank you for joining the show today. Obviously a pleasure to speak with another Wade and Wendy or Wendigo.
Hey Max, how's it going? Cool. Yes. For all the listeners out there, I'm Dave. I'm the Chief of Staff at Wade and Wendy. I'm also probably Recruitment DNA's #1 fan. So I've been bugging Max for months to let me on the podcast so we could do a bit. And I finally got the green light today. And it's a good day because there's a lot to talk about. Some reasons for optimism and also, some reasons for reflection and a pretty intense time that we're all kind of going through.
Dave, you're also our first ever episode on the video conferencing. We've never done a live video podcast before. So how does it feel to see your face?
It's excellent. I spend a lot of time on, especially these days, on Zoom already. So thank you to the good people at zoom.us. And I thought it would be a great time for, two guys wearing sweatshirts sitting on their couches to get together and record a video podcast.
I think that's what podcasts were intended for. All right. So, Dave, you're the chief of, can you tell them, wait, so what is your title exactly again? I'm slowly stumbling over my words.
That's a great question. So I'm the chief of staff. So I occupy kind of an interesting spot here at Wade and Wendy. I oversee, on the one hand, our people, so hiring, recruiting. When we were, a dollar and a dream in a co-working space, I helped recruit and build kind of the team. So I've been a recruiter on the ground, oversee HR and kind of people operations today. And on the other side, work with growth and existing client account management. So those are the kind of two sort of parallel kind of paths that I run on. So I really get to see up close and personal both what it's like to be managing the people side of an organization, especially a growing organization, and then get to work on the other hand with partners that are actively building their organizations. So talent acquisition teams at some of the world's largest and most recognizable companies, and that's always a fun kind of synergy between those two things.
So it is interesting. You're the perfect guest to have on this week because the reason I can think of your title, I'm thinking chief client this, chief customer this, because I forget what you do. You're the guy who wears a lot of hats over here. But so with that, obviously who doesn't want to hear a conversation between two coworkers on their own podcast? But really more importantly than that, you're overseeing the clients that we work with at Wade and Wendy. So as all of this has hit the fan over the past couple of weeks, you've been on the ground saying, hey, we need upticks in this. Hey, we need to stop hiring for this. On the other side of things, more on the internal side of things, you are running you run a lot of the employee show here. So when it comes to cultural events, when it comes to keeping us all tight together, you're the glue guy. Like you're the keystone when it comes to all that. So there are a lot of things that I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain about on this episode.
Yeah, the thing that happened, so, it's been, it's a strange time for hiring. And, all this is happening and, I'm sure you like me are just getting a ton of texts as people have a lot of newfound free time, people saying, hey, how's it going? How's the business? Like, what are you seeing on the ground? Especially last week, record unemployment filing. I think it was around 3.3 million people. That's 1% of the US population. It's the biggest in history. And one of the things that you mentioned to me, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, because you're on the ground talking to clients every day as well, is the change in demand. So while there are less organizations hiring, and certainly 3.3 million people filing for unemployment, one of the trends that you brought up to me was that the companies that are still hiring are hiring at an insane rate. So actually the actual demand for like Wade and Wendy services actually went up, I think something like 25 times in the last 2 weeks, which, runs counter to, the scariest of headlines and kind of gives me a glimmer of optimism as, I think we might be in the middle of a really hard and really difficult talent transition, migration between organizations and between kind of job functions. But I do think that there is still, kind of bounce back in the works based on what we're seeing in terms of, some hiring plans and things like that from the broader market.
It's so interesting. So, I mean, we had my girlfriend who's a recruiter was on the previous episode, and so interesting because it's like like on one side of the market, it's just inflating. On the other side, it's entirely decreasing. And in recruiting, or even in sales, I'm finding that I have less on my calendar from new prospective clients, but I'm busier than I've ever been because there are so many things to do to adjust with all of this and everything. I'm sure you're seeing that on a ton of our clients' accounts.
Absolutely. And as somebody that was trying to book this time with you, I can say we moved this 4 times, which is, how it's supposed to be, I think. That's startup life. But yeah, so one of the things, so we have a little bit of data to back this up. So actually talked to our technical team. And one of the things that kind of powers our system is internal term for it is a knowledge graph, which is something I probably is a useless sounding thing to all of our good listeners out there. But essentially we've put together a giant web of all the job descriptions, skills, resumes, candidate profiles, everything that kind of makes up the labor market as we interact with it, feeds into our system. And what we've seen over the past couple of weeks is some of the hardest hit job families. So things like, service workers, frontline employees, logistics for, places that manufacturing has been shut down, things like that. Some of those skills are actually among the highest rates of hiring happening today. So some of the hardest hit job families are actually places where that demand spike that you're seeing and that's keeping you as busy as ever are actually hiring for those same things. So that gives us some optimism that we're seeing. So, what that means in practice is that, on the one hand, there's been a real turn down in certain parts of manufacturing. Definitely a lot of organizations that are on hold, especially if they have a physical element to their business. A lot of customer service people have, found themselves out of work in the last couple of weeks, which is awful. But on the other hand, what we're seeing with our clients is an incredible push towards roles like that, towards customer service. We have pockets of manufacturing that are at an all-time high. They cannot hire fast enough to get folks into the door for what they're kind of building. And, where those candidates are coming from is something that is completely and utterly fascinating as somebody that thinks about hiring and skills kind of all day. Because on the one hand, you have these net new hires. So you have new people coming to the organization, companies like Amazon and Instacart have made a lot of headlines, but you go down the list and there's quite a large number of essential organizations, logistics organizations that are hiring for this type of talent. You also have internally a lot of reskilling. If the customer experience group that was previously working on in-person sales, so working at a retail shop, they were working downtown on Main Street, but that Main Street shop is closed, being moved to a digital customer experience agent. As the demand on digital customer experience is an all-time high for a lot of these organizations. So I think that's really interesting in terms of that kind of internal company migration, how people are kind of moving. And then the last thing that is, we've seen a lot in talent acquisition teams is, this period of pause that's happening today, right? Where the economy shut down. We're all kind of sitting from home on our respective Zooms, waiting for things to pick back up. And we're getting, there's optimism that in June and hopefully by July, things will start to come back online. So there's a lot of things that are just on hold today. So a lot of talent acquisition teams are being held together, which is one of the most incredible trends to see in the market, at least from what we've seen, in anticipation of this bounce back. So what do you do for 60 days, right? So some, people are getting funneled to these teams that are hiring super aggressively, like customer service and, delivery logistics or manufacturing, things like that. But some are also being enrolled in training programs and planning and preparing for what's next, and how these organizations are going to handle what could be an incredible spike in hiring in 60 days. Even those places that are projecting less demand than maybe before, they've been on hold. So they're kind of ready to turn this spigot back on, and it's probably going to happen all at once. So it's this a little bit of a shock effect in kind of preparing for that. But that's been really cool for us to kind of work with teams as they sort of plot what's next and how to prepare for what they see as a crazy wave coming their way.
I mean, it is a crazy wave. So a couple of things I was thinking when you're talking about the reskilling and reutilizing existing workers. Like the other day, I picked up a pizza from this place on the Upper East Side, Emmy Squared, and it's so good. It's so good. So anyway,
Shout out to Emmy Squared.
Huge shout out to Emmy Squared. So I go there. I ordered it the night before and forgot to pick it up. So then I call them, and they were really cool about it. Just come back, we'll fire up the oven. And so I go there, and I'm getting the pizza. I say, thanks so much. You guys are the best. I'll certainly be coming back. And the woman says, like, I'm not usually here. I'm like our events coordinator and catering director. And it's like, she's handling these days because you need somebody to do that. You need butts in seats, and you need capable people who are, it's like even like a cardiologist, a friend of ours, the boss said to them, like, you're no longer a cardiologist, you're a doctor. It's reskilling, all over the world. And I think, then when it comes back to this re-wave, okay, you've had people hold down the fort as best possible. We've gotten through this high five all around. But then, I'm thinking of like Hilton, who's letting everybody go, and Marriott. Like, these are so many people. Now they're going to get all these applications coming back from people who've been at other hotels, other locations, even other industries. And it may be a good time to refresh the workforce, changing with the guard kind of thing. But you really have to have a decent handle and have decent data to be able to work with as far as picking who's going to be the right person in this new position, because you're having an entirely different staff than you had last year, which is completely unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy lift, and that's an unknown, right? That's kind of where we are today.
What are teams doing to prepare for that? Because I mean, we've had teams that are obviously hiring heavily on one side, but are they doing anything to prepare for the other side of the house, or is it all hands on deck over here?
It's both. Yeah, I mean, the all hands on deck is probably the best way to describe it. I think that's what every organization is going through right now as best they can. The other side of it is as the kind of days go forward and we get more information about what's going on, and hopefully start to predict an end to the situation, that will set the wheels in motion. That will it'll probably happen really fast. And that's what we're hearing when we talk to our clients is we don't know. And the second we know, it will probably, be time to fire up the entire machine. But, what we are seeing is a real pullback and a lot of planning for, what are the various ways this could look, right? So let's say things start to come back online, hiring starts up, but there's still, offices are still closed, non-essential offices. Mm-hmm. How do you plan for remote onboarding and, a remote hiring process? These are things that, you talking about over the last few weeks as a major thing on the tip of everybody's tongue. So there's a lot of preparation going into what will or could this kind of future look like. And, I think thinking about your technology, investing in training and tools is a big part of that. Some of it's, offline, just like process management. Like, how do we think about things? What are some things that were, not working before that we have an opportunity to upgrade, to make better? And I'm a hopeless optimist, so I should caveat by saying that. But I do see I do see a crystal clear world where things come out on the other side, and there's a better experience for hiring teams, for candidates coming through the process, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a catch-22. Like you need to bring in tech to be more efficient, but you need people to help bring in tech. And when you don't have people, it's wild. It's a shame for those that aren't, like you're saying, that aren't prepared, that haven't done this, because it's like you're in a ship, you hit a wave, and now nobody knows where they are. No one knows where anything is. And now you're just figuring it out while the ship's rocking. It's tough out there.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, no. So I mean, one of the things on the other side, and like the other half of my job that I have to think about is, you have all this turbulence kind of going on. And a couple podcasts ago, you had on Chris Ramsey from Randstad USA, and I probably listened to that podcast like 3 times just because I thought you guys had such an incredible conversation. And one of the things that Chris talked about is the role of talent acquisition, and kind of HR more generally as this kind of steadying hand, and like the kind of rock during these times. So whether that is for candidates who are waiting to hear back on an offer, candidates that are in the middle of the process for organizations that are still hiring, for those folks that are transferring within an organization, I think there's I think the role of people, and like people teams, whether that's talent acquisition or kind of HR and culture management, things like that, they've never had a more powerful and challenging opportunity to impact their organizations. So this is something that you and I talk about all the time. Like, how do we continue to build an awesome, like, fun place to work? How do we continue to work together and keep the kind of good times rolling, as it were, in a world where we're all sitting, I'm praying that my newborn son doesn't interrupt our Zoom here, or the mailman doesn't come and set off the dog. Yeah. So, how do you build kind of culture around that? So yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like this has been a major adjustment for you. I know before, like you were either in the office or on the road, and almost never like working from home. I work from home a fair amount, so this is not like my first rodeo, but I'd love to hear how just things are going for you, and what, being part of a team has meant in this moment.
That's a great question. So it's interesting because you're right. I've never really worked at home. I used to joke, if I'm working from home, don't message me. I'm working from home. Don't you know what that means? That means I'm working from home, but you can't do that now. It's not like a sick day where you're trying to just get enough done to keep your stuff afloat. You really got to be proactive. It's funny. I think I have pretty bad ADD, ADHD, and I was terrified of working at home because I am so my own worst nightmare. Like, I could just walk circles around the apartment, picking things, doing things. And I think in the first week, I was so nervous of being distracted that I just glued. I drank more coffee than I've ever had in my life. And it was the most productive work week I've ever had. Now, that's not sustainable. It's crazy. Like, I just saw the movie The Lighthouse with who the hell was in that?
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. I felt like him. I was like going crazy, like doing work, drinking coffee, pass out, wake up. It's just, you can't do that. So with that, I'm staying here with my girlfriend. It's really nice to have company, to have somebody. It's crazy. Like, when I was thinking about it at the end of the day, when was the last time you shook somebody's hand at all? Like, if she's not here, that means I haven't had physical contact with a human being in like a month and a half. That's crazy. So it's fun. Like, we do our morning meeting and we have the whole team that gets on Zoom. We do the gallery view, and it's so cool to just see everybody's face. Even if it's first thing in the morning, it really brings us together. I think it's so important. Like, everyone's siloed into their worlds. If I ask you a favor in the office, you're used to my demeanor asking that. If I'm sending you a message, I can't get my demeanor through. That might just piss you off because it's just work on your plate. You don't know where it's coming from. So learning to communicate properly, I think, was a really big thing. This week I think this is the 3rd week now in quarantine. It's starting to feel more normal. There's starting to be more of a process, more of a rhythm. Even just getting outside and poking your head out, you have to do those kind of things. So that's a nice way to wake yourself up without having more coffee. But I mean, Dave, you've been really good on it. We've had 2 company events. We've done like a trivia thing, and then we did like Pictionary, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things so when we realized that this was like probably going to happen, and we were kind of getting ready to make everybody remote, the things that there were 2 kind of elements to it. One was like the structural, functional stuff, like how do you make sure that the communication that was happening before happens today, right? Like, so adding a morning stand up so that we're all kind of see each other's faces. We all kind of know what each other are working on in a different way than even we had when we were all in the office. Those are the kind of like work structural sort of things. But some of it is also just leaving extra time in meetings and devoting the first like 10 minutes of one-on-ones to check in, see how people are going. Make sure that people are getting their like quota of human interaction for the day. That's like good for work, but also good for humans, because ultimately we're a bunch of humans like stuck inside in various corners of the world today. So that was really important. And then, we wanted to figure out like, well, what could we do to make this time different, special? How could we leverage like technology in a way that we couldn't before? And what does it mean where everybody's kind of like glued and stuck together in one place, kind of looking for some sort of connection and something to do, right? So a couple of things that we did were we had a like just virtual happy hour. We started simple, just see how it went. Which is probably the most successful happy hour we've ever had. Like, just a really like excellent kind of hang for everybody, which is really neat. And then last weekend, I'm going to have to put you on blast, and we'll share the image out on our social media. If you're listening and not watching kind of the YouTube version here. So we played kind of a Pictionary collaborative game where you get a word or a topic, something like that.
Scribble.io.
Scribble.io. So shout out. It's like SKRIBL.io. And we were on the fence. We're like, all right, we'll give this a try. Like, we created a little private room, and everyone got on Zoom so we could kind of collaborate and poke fun at each other. And this ended up being, first of all, Liz on our team just absolutely destroyed the competition. Like, she doubled up everyone on the team. I've never met somebody so incredible at Pictionary, and it was really special to be just like watch greatness happen. It was like watching LeBron James in like it was beautiful.
He's playing this while we're playing checkers.
Exactly. So we had a particularly incredible moment, and luckily our fair host here was responsible for it. So here, I'm sharing my screen. So the word was Garfield, and for those that can't see it, there is a very sad looking cat bunny rabbit kind of mix with some orange scribbles, and then I want lasagna kind of written in. And so everyone was just watching this cat kind of come together and had no idea what was going on. The guesses were fox, bobcat, rabbit, fox hunt, mountain lion, and then lasagna came in at the bottom. And then instantly, you can see in our screenshot here, everyone guessed the word. So this has turned into like a legendary company moment. One of our coworkers like grabbed the lasagna picture and made it her avatar on Slack. So we've been having a good time, and and I think it's in some ways we've had more space for communication than actually we probably even had in the office. And some of that's just due to the disruption of everyday life. People don't have things to run off to, and that's kind of the less nice version of it. But we have a Netflix. We're going to do a Netflix watch tomorrow. We'll picking the movie this afternoon, and it's just been a nice way to keep communication flowing. And better for worse, it's never been busier here. So that helps kind of keep things moving as well, because people can really kind of focus, and you get to see everybody's kids as they wander onto the screen, and now I see everybody's pets, and it's just it's a different experience for sure.
I think after all of this, I think the office real estate market is going to take a big hit.
Yeah,
there's a lot of companies that recognize I don't have to pay X amount a month when our team was just absolutely rocking and rolling from home.
Yeah, I mean, we've always had a remote element to our team. I'm not in the office usually, like up to 50% of the time. We certainly have a lot of people on the road, like you and a couple other folks on the team travel a fair amount. So we've had some good practices put in place. I still love the office. Like, there is something about being together in one physical space. I love our office. We have like a cool view of the Empire State Building, which never gets old. So, there is something about that's really special. But, on the other hand, like it's definitely, it's definitely an interesting time. And one of the things about what I do is that because I get to talk to so many talent organizations, talent is one of the most distributed workforces out there. It is, I think we've written a bit about this, like remote recruiters are, it's one of the most popular kind of remote jobs out there. It's really something you can do from everywhere. A lot of staffing and even like in-house talent organizations are remote, or at the very least they're in, somebody will be in Chicago, somebody else will be in Mississippi, somebody else will be in Southern California. So there's already been this element of, spending a lot of time on video like we're doing now and getting to talk to people from across the country, which is always kind of really neat. So, I definitely think that recruiting and talent has kind of been a leader in that space. And I think that that's only going to be more exacerbated by this change. So yeah, I mean, it's a crazy time. Whether these are changes that last forever or last 90 days, nobody knows. If I knew that, we would. I have no idea what we would do with that information, but I certainly feel more certain about every day. But it's a really exciting time to be working with companies that are having to tackle these problems, and and really seeing the way that they're just the really smart approaches to navigating what is an incredibly uncertain situation for people.
Very well put. All right, Dave. So I think we are running up on time. Any last comments, shout outs, notions, any love you want to give to the audience?
I mean, I have a really important question for you. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned going to Emmy Squared, which is a Detroit-style pizza place. I live in Greater Detroit. I'm a huge fan of the style, and I'm a huge fan of Emmy Squared in particular. But I have an important personal question. Aren't you gluten-free?
They make gluten-free pies.
Wow.
They are fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic.
If you were going to break your diet for a pizza, Emmy Squared would be pretty close to the top of the list. So I would have understood, but I'm so glad to hear that you're able to get a gluten-free pie. But yeah, this is great. Huge recruitment DNA head. So excited to chat with you.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much again for coming on the episode. Everybody stay tuned. We'll give you a preview for our next episode coming up shortly, and talk to you then. See you then, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, Max. Bye. Bye.